In this video, I'm going to talk about one of the most misunderstood habit structures when it comes to building focus in your business. For those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Jeremiah Krakowski, and for the last 21 years, I have been building, coaching, and mentoring businesses to over $10 million a year. And I want to help you, whether you're just starting out, how to scale, or how to make the kind of money that you want to make. Maybe you want to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 per month. It's going to take a level of focus that's different than anything else that maybe you've ever experienced. The first thing that we have to realize is this, is that when we talk about focus, it's not about strain or striving or stress. It's actually more about letting go. Because here's the problem, is that when we focus in our brain like this and we're stressed out about it, it actually removes our ability to cognitively function and do things well. And so I have a technique that I actually use that helps me get in the zone and focus when I'm struggling to do so. And it involves a combination of a few different activities. Number one, I step into what I call CP mode. What is CP mode? CP mode stands for childlike play mode. And what I do is I look at what are activities or things that I used to do when I was a kid that maybe I got in trouble for, or that I would do if I had an unlimited amount of free time that I would want to do. Now, before you log off of this video, understand that this is actually a strategy that has helped make me 7 figures, and I have actually proven this multiple times over the last 10 years that this works. I've talked to multiple millionaires, and they actually do this as part of their strategy for focus. And what it is that if you're struggling to focus, I deal with this. We have one activity that we're doing over here, and we want to come into what we're doing in our business, and we're struggling to actually do the things that we need to do. So what I do is I take a moment of time, no more than 15 to 30 minutes, where I will do something that's fun. For me, reading a sci-fi novel might be one of those things. Could also be playing a video game. Just depends on what the activity is that I need to focus on afterwards. I find if I'm making videos like this, reading tends to work better. If I'm doing something that's a bit more technical on my computer, such as building a funnel or a landing page, video games tend to be a little bit better for that, okay? And so what it is that I'm triggering myself out of the thinking mind and into feeling. And I'm getting into a state of mind where I'm letting go of all of the stuff that's bothering me in my life temporarily, as far as that goes. All that stuff is real, and we're not talking about negating them or saying that we're going to ignore them or get rid of them, but we're shifting our focus temporarily for about 15 to 30 minutes off of those things. Now, this is where it gets fun, okay? You got to put a pause on that, because otherwise that's how you end up as a deadbeat, and you're not doing anything that's worthwhile. And if I played video games all day long, I wouldn't have a great relationship with my wife, son, or have a good business, as far as that goes. So after that, what we do is we go into what I call MF. And no, it doesn't mean what you might think it means. It means meditative focus. And so what I will do is I will put on some music, because the music triggers a certain thing. And again, it depends, different type of music for different type of activities. If I'm going to be cleaning the house, I might turn on some Latin music. If I'm going to be hanging out with my wife, I might turn on some country music. If I'm going to be doing some video content like this, I actually just got done listening to, while I did my meditative focus time, the cello suite from Johann Sebastian Bach. Like that, and I listened to that, and it got my brain, while I closed my eyes and went into basically a 5-minute meditation. I'm not talking about a 30-minute, 5-hour meditation. I used to do those. I downloaded the Headspace app years ago, did the long meditations. Now I've gotten to a point where I have a multi-stage process where I call meditative focus. So I move out of the childlike play mode, which is temporary, to shift out of the stress, the anxiety, the uncertainty, and all of that into meditative focus mode. And so what this is where I will close my eyes. I'll usually sit down on a couch or a chair. I'll focus on my breath. And if I'm really, really struggling, I might even go right into the place or location where I have to do the activity. Let's say that I'm really struggling to make content in my business. I did this yesterday. So I actually pulled up my chair where I was going to make content, and sat down, turned the lights on, all of that, and then I went into my meditative focus time. And here's what I do, is I'll focus on my breath. This is stage 1. I'll close my eyes, focus on the breath, focus on the breath filling my lungs right here, okay? And I'll do that for about 5 to 10 seconds. I'll really just shift my focus right here. Then I'll do a what's called a body scan, where I will start mentally imagining that I'm scanning from head to toe. Imagine like you're dipping yourself into water or coming out of water, and you can feel that sort of sensation. You can actually shift your focus from here, the breath, to head, down, 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 down to your toes, and then back up, up, up to the head. And I might do that 3 to 5 times, back and forth. And I'll do it not quickly, but I'll go like 10 seconds down, 10 seconds up, while I'm still breathing and focusing on the breath as well. So I'm almost now simultaneously focusing on my breath, which is kind of difficult to do, and the body scan. And generally I'll stop focusing on the breath and go right into the body scan as far as that goes. And then there's a moment where I'll notice that I'm no longer thinking or worrying about what's actually going on, and I'm just really focusing on being present in my physical body. Here's the next stage of this, is that I start to visualize the activity that I'm about to do. So creating this content right here. And I actually got to a stage where I realized just imagining or visualizing myself creating the content wasn't getting me into the zone that I needed to get in. And so what I started to do was I started to, while I was focusing on the breath, I would visualize me having a great idea for what I'm going to talk about on my video. Because if I'm making a piece of content like this, maybe I was struggling with a lack of creativity of what I was going to make a video about. Okay, so I went through. I read a book for about 15 minutes. I did the meditative focus for about 5 minutes, and then I visualized for about 3 to 5 minutes me having a great idea. So you have to understand the shift here with the visualization, and this is the part that I think that a lot of people get wrong with visualization that I'm going to help you with right here. Okay. So in my present 3D reality, right here, this is what I was experiencing right here. I had no creativity, no ideas. I had no like anything that I needed to actually come up with a good video. My mind was blank, writer's block as far as that goes. Okay. But in my visualization, which is separate from what I'm actually experiencing, I started to imagine, well, what if I did have creative ideas? Even though I don't, even though I wasn't, even though I was experiencing the writer's block in that moment, or content creator's block, I visualized that I had creative ideas, even though I actually didn't. In my mind, I imagined what it would feel like to have a creative idea and what those would look like. And the activity of going into the visualization of doing this. And by the way, these 3 stages right here help you get here much quicker in the creative process. Okay? So the childlike play moment, where maybe I'll either play a video game, or I'll hang out with my son, or I will read a book, or do something that's fun for me that's not business focused. Temporarily. Then I do the meditative focus, and then I visualize the thing that I want to happen. So I want to have creativity, and I had really no ideas or even motivation to make a video like this. And all it took was just 5 minutes of me sitting there to feel what it would feel like to have creative ideas, what it would feel like to have inspiration. Even though I didn't, even though I wasn't actually experiencing that, I imagined that I did. And I allowed my imagination to actually see something in my mind's eye that my reality did not experience. And what ended up happening was my neurotransmitters, because it's all in the lack of creativity really is just the brain is blocked from being able to experience that. By visualizing that I did have creativity, they started to come together. And I started to have creative ideas for what I wanted to talk about in my video, for what I wanted to create a video about. And I found that this works in a number of different parts of our life. If I'm struggling to come up with sales copy for my offers, if I'm struggling to come up with ideas for my landing pages, for what I want to create in my business, if I'm struggling to even focus to be able to Do the dishes. I'll tell you this. It sounds juvenile, right? Why would you need to focus on doing the dishes? Well, I actually get some anxiety when I do the dishes. It's happened for about the last 10 years. And there's a story behind that. I think it comes to the fact that I used to have an abusive roommate that would actually verbally abuse me for not doing the dishes. And I've had to process through that to where I literally, every time I go to do the dishes, I do it every night, I have to, it's a hard thing that I have to learn to do the hard thing, and I have to visualize myself and break down the steps of what it is that I'm doing. So I'm gonna do the cups first. I'm gonna do the pots and pans. And even as I'm talking about it, it's hard for me to articulate this just because this is the first time in my life that I've actually been able to break out of the trigger. I used to have dishes, they would pile up for weeks on end because of this trigger, as far as that goes. And so the fact that I'm able to utilize visualization to actually clean the house up every single night without anxiety is a huge thing. And so if you feel overwhelmed by certain activities, maybe you're overwhelmed by your Facebook ads manager or the landing pages or doing your taxes or whatever that is, if you can go through this 3-stage process of the childlike play for a little bit of time, maybe I'll even watch something on Netflix that might help me with that. Something to get you out of the momentary strain or stress of what is not working how you want it to in your mind when we get overwhelmed. Now, we don't want to get into the habit where we need to do this all the time. Here's what's really cool is you're going to be able to grow to where you don't need that. And all you need to do is to trigger yourself into it is visualizing yourself doing the activity. And so in the beginning, when you're experiencing the overwhelm, you can step into the childlike play moments. You can do the meditative focus, and then you visualize. And then as you do that, as that becomes more comfortable and it starts to become routine, you can actually remove the beginning steps. You can remove the playful moment, and you just do the meditative focus. Then you can remove the meditative focus when you don't need it, and you just visualize for about 5 minutes. And then you can actually start to visualize in the moment, where you sit down to do the thing that you want to do, and you start to visualize because you're starting to wire your brain cognitively to get into this moment. It starts to become a faster habit for you. You know, how many times, if you remember, a lot of this is like the overwhelm for us of driving a car. Do you remember driving a car for the first time? You had to check your mirrors, you had to do all this stuff, and it was overwhelming to do that. But now we do it on autopilot. It's because we've done it enough times that we've actually wired our brain to where it creates a habit structure to where we don't have to think about it when we do it. And that's where you want to actually get to in your business and in your life for the habits that are healthy for you. If you've ever noticed that you might have habits that are unhealthy for you, you have trouble breaking those habits, it often is because we've wired our brain to do those things automatically as far as that goes. And so the best way to break a habit is to actually visualize yourself when you feel like you're also about to do something that might be unhealthy for you, such as eating sugar. I struggled with sugar for a long time. Such as alcohol. You start to visualize in that moment, I'm really craving this thing. You visualize something else that you want to replace it with in those moments. And for me, I started doing that to where I would exercise in the moments where I was maybe craving sugar or things like that. You might think that's crazy. Or you could replace it with, maybe I'm not going to eat sugar, but I might have a protein shake, or I might have a bagel. You know, again, we might say, well, bagel, sugar. A bagel is actually going to be better for you probably than processed sugar most of the time, as far as that goes. I'm not a health coach as far as that goes. Again, eating less processed foods, more whole greens, it's important, and it's the best thing to do for you as far as that goes. But this isn't a health conversation right here. Anytime that you feel overwhelmed with an activity that you need to do to break out of the overwhelm and to get into a state of mind, because it's about getting into a state of mind that then sets you up where your actions can follow in a positive direction where you're no longer stuck. I get stuck all the time in my life and in my business. And the way that I get out of it is this 3-stage process that I talked about right here. And so I would encourage you to try it out. Find an activity. I've encouraged people to do this for years, and I'm telling you, my coaching clients see results when they do this, like all the time, where they get into, it's something that is fun for them to do that is unrelated to the activity. It's a temporary mental distraction. You don't want to get caught up in the distraction where now we get addicted to it and that becomes our habit every time we do it, is that we run to this thing to distract us. That's the negative side of it. But you use a temporary, momentary distraction to remove your focus from the overwhelm, and then you go back into calming the nervous system down with the meditative focus, and then visualize yourself actually doing the thing that was overwhelming you. And in my experience, and in my clients' experience, by doing this, it breaks us out of the cycle of overwhelm and into peace and clarity and the ability to actually have fun doing things that overwhelmed us for the longest time. You know, for the longest time, me hanging out with my son was something that really, really overwhelmed me to my core. It was very hard. I grew up, I didn't have a dad until I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I didn't know what it was like to be a dad. And I would literally have a hard time even being around my son or spending time with him. And so what I had to learn how to do is how to break myself out of the mental overwhelm that I was experiencing in those moments. And so I've tested this out in a number of different areas of my life. I'll even do it with speed reading. I've tried it out when I'm reading a book. I will visualize myself speed reading the book, and I will be able to read faster because I'm wiring my brain into a cognitive state that's able to do something that seemed hard for me. Now, here's the part that I have found, which is interesting with the speed reading, is why I have these 3-stage process. Is if I only visualize the speed reading, I will actually start to get a headache. My vagus nerve will start to get tense. And so what I actually have to do is I have to take the 5 minutes to meditate, step out of the stress and the anxiety to calm the nervous system down, and then the visualization can actually come in and be more effective. And so this is why, if we're struggling to calm the nervous system down, these are 3 different stages of tools that we can use. Generally, what I will try to do is this: as I reserve the childlike play moment, I reserve it for when this alone doesn't work and this alone doesn't work. So what I have is a process now that I've actually created where I go in reverse order of this, is that I will actually start with the visualization. And if that doesn't work after about 5 minutes, I'll go into a 5-minute meditation as far as that goes. And then I'll go back to trying the visualization out. If that still doesn't work, now I've spent about 15 minutes trying to do this. Now I know, okay, this is a moment in time, and I'll make a note of it mentally that maybe next time start with the childlike play moment. I found that out over the last week. I was trying to create video content. It was taking me almost an hour to get into the zone just by meditating or visualizing. So now I added in for the last couple of days the childlike play moment beforehand, which saved me over an hour of time beforehand. To now I do the childlike play moment, reading a book, reading a novel, something like that, maybe playing a video game, go into the meditative moment, go into the visualization, and the stress and anxiety is reduced. And so this has allowed me to actually become more productive. This has allowed me to actually tap into certain levels of creativity that I didn't have before and have a lot more confidence and feel great about what I'm doing as far as that goes. And so if we look at these 3 different stages, I'll start with the visualization. If that doesn't work, I'll do the meditation, and then I'll go into this moment right there. Okay. So hopefully this has helped you break past overwhelm. You can apply this when it comes to your business, when it comes to building your landing pages, if you need to make webinars, if you need to write email content, if you need to write sales copy, if you need to be able to do that. And what it is it's a way of literally just rewiring your brain to be able to do the things that we find are difficult or hard. And it only takes about 15 minutes, and it's a practice that I've actually found really, really works well for me throughout my life. And I can look at multiple millionaires that I've worked with, and they do the same thing as far as that goes. Okay, listen, if you are a coach, trainer, mentor, and you want to work with me on actually building your business out and go beyond just these videos that we talk about, subscribe to the channel. That'd be great. But also check out our accelerator program. I'd love to see you in there, and I'd love to work with you to help you build out your coaching business or your course business to create 7 figures. All right? We'll talk soon. Have a good one, everybody.